Hi, I'm Amy Baxter, editor of Retail Leader, and welcome to Trend Talk. Every week on Trend Talk, we chat with an industry expert about ongoing retail trends and news. My guest this week is Rishad Tobaccowala, author of Restoring the Soul of Business. He most recently served as global strategist and chief growth officer at Publicis Group. So welcome, Rishad. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
So let's get into your book a little bit. The title, Restoring the Soul of Business, Staying Human in the Age of Data. When did you write your book and what prompted you to write on this topic?
So the book was published 2 years ago in January of 2020. I wrote it through 2018 and a little beginning of 2019, so long before COVID. And the reason I wrote it was my undergraduate degree is in advanced mathematics. I have an MBA in finance, and I ran a lot of data practices at Publicis, or helped in a lot of data practices. And I was beginning to realize that a lot of executives were tilting their business and their decision making too much towards data and not enough to what I call the story. And so my basic belief was that the future was about how do you combine the data, which in my book I call the spreadsheet, and the story. Mm-hmm. And companies that succeed are companies that unite the two. So if you think about Walmart before Doug McMillon compared to Costco, one had better talent, higher sales per square foot. They paid their people better, they had better culture, and they had better results. And you see that whether it's United versus Southwest Airlines, you see that Microsoft before and after Satya Nadella. So basically, the fundamental truth is data is like electricity. You can't do without it, but you can rarely differentiate your company on data.
Yeah, what's the danger of being too data driven?
Well, the three big dangers of being too data driven. The first is you start believing that the data will give you the answer when it's actually people and data that give you the answer. Second, data tends to be backward looking. It gives you some indications of the future, but it's somewhat backward looking. So you could be optimizing your business for today, but most of your opportunities and most of your competition will come from outside your category. But you keep benchmarking with data against your category. I remind people that BMW and General Motors were not surprised by each other, but by Toyota, by Uber and Tesla, right? P&G was surprised by Dollar Shave Club. And you see this again and again in category after category, where people say, this is my competition, and zoom, out comes somebody else. So that's the second problem. One is it doesn't allow you to actually think about the future. The second, obviously, is you think you can differentiate just with data, but you really can't. And the third is, then if you really truly believe that it's all about the data, you should resign immediately. That's what I tell everybody, resign immediately, because machines and AI can do a much better job. Why the hell are we paying you? Right? And people have become so fixated on data because they're insecure. They don't understand it. Right? You don't differentiate on that. I remind people, what are the most successful, what's the most valuable company in the world? It's Apple. What's the most valuable company in Europe? It's LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. What are true about both of those companies? They make great products, but they actually separate them not through data. They separate them through design, storytelling, talent, provenance, history. And that's the issue. So for most retailers, you start working on data, it basically comes about slotting allowances, fees, differentiating yourself on low prices. How many industries, how many companies, how many places in retail have destroyed themselves following that horrible God home?
Well, I'm curious over your career here, how you've seen business and marketing like shift into this digital age where it's become so data centric.
Yes.
We talked about some of the dangers, but like what there's great opportunities too.
There are great opportunities. So I'm very pro data. That's why I remind people that I ran data companies. I know it well, but it's just as I consider to be an essential ingredient that opens up opportunities. It is like, as I say, electricity. It illuminates things we didn't know before. Basically, what happened is as the world became more digital, it became both more measurable, more targetable, and more optimizable. Because as it became more digital, you could replace human optimization with machine optimization. But then with that, you also had some humans. What happens over time that as a result, the biggest businesses today happen to be the businesses of Google and Facebook and Amazon and others, right? Because they have a lot of the audience, they have a lot of the data, they have a lot of the marketplaces. But it actually makes it very difficult if you're a retailer to actually compete. It's really good for a very small retailer because a small retailer can get on the map, especially mom and pop places. But in effect, what they eventually do is because of the bidding algorithms, you eventually turn all your margin over to them. And then over time, as they learn more about your customers and your products and services, they launch competitive products, right? So yes, it's more targetable, it's more optimizable, but it also means sooner or later you're going to lose agency unless you begin to have a direct relationship with your end users. But when you do that, you've got to give them something more than I have targeted you. So what we're now doing is we're moving into a new age where the first decade or the first 2 decades of digital was very data driven, much more towards the spreadsheet, much more towards the plumbing. Now the separation and where you see the big growth is the poetry. So for instance, the world of TikTok, right, is about entertainment and it's growing really fast. The world of Facebook is optimizable shit, right? And you've seen what's happened to its stock price. And that's what I've been warning people about. We always basically fail to see ahead. As leaders, you have to guide the company ahead. When I told people it was digital was cool and I went to everybody, most people in retail said, what do you mean? Okay, fine. People are caught up. Now they're so fixated on it, they're missing this new generation of broadly what I call the future of the internet. And the future of the internet is not just going to be about e-commerce. It's not just going to be about search. It's not just going to be about mobile. And it's not just going to be about social. We're about to see this new era driven by things like 5G, AI, augmented reality and virtual reality and voice, which will allow you to deepen storytelling. Disney, for instance, just hired or had a person now in charge of next generation storytelling and experiences. What's a retailer? A next generation storyteller and experience developer. Because outside of some of their own products, which there's their home products, that's the value they add. Right? The value isn't finding the right person at the right time. Everybody can do that. That's why I try to remind people, everybody has the same technologies and tools. You are fooled in thinking that you've got better stuff. And you definitely don't have better stuff than Google and Amazon and Facebook and people like that. So separate through storytelling, and that's what I think is happening now. And it's one of the big things is we're having this creative age. I remind people that today, Kylie Jenner and her sisters and the D'Amelio sisters, so one on TikTok and the other on Instagram, have more traffic during a day than the Super Bowl. Okay, so I also am doing a lot of stuff with marketers, including retailers, saying, yeah, but I'm also saying, like, what's a media company? Like, my Substack reaches more CEOs in marketing than Ad Age does. What's a media company? Who's a content creator, right? How do you are a content creator. Every retailer is a content creator. Every retailer is a media company, but they aren't thinking about it that way. And so to a great extent, it's to reimagine the future because world-class retailers, many of them listening to this, have become world-class through things like merchandising, right? They haven't become world-class by optimizing pricing. That happens to be one of the key things. But increasingly, all of those special tricks are up in the cloud that everybody can link into. So you have to basically sort of differentiate yourself. And so that's why I'm very excited about this new age, an age of creativity, an age of storytelling, built on data and plumbing.
Yeah. Seems like a lot of crossover between everything now. In the creative age and the data age, everything's a little bit more
so I basically
globalized, I guess.
Yeah, so it's not only globalized, the age I use. So I wrote a piece in this rishad.substack.com called Ruptures in the Mediascape about a year and a half ago. And I said, okay, one of the things that most retailers and most companies are organized the following way and I'll show you how they're organized. But first, let me give you an experience, which many of us go through.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I was on TikTok, and in my scrolling, I came across a video, which was an ad. At the end of the video, they allowed me to buy a product and then gave me a choice to get it delivered at home or to pick it up from the store. And I decided to pick it up from the store. So I wanted to ask people, what exactly was that? Was that above the line because it started with a video? Or was it below the line because it ended up with me buying a product? Was it online because I started online, or was it offline? Was it social? Was it mobile? Was it video? Or was it e-commerce? And to your point, the answer is
All of it.
We're living in
Right.
a world of mongrel media, but most client and most organizations are organized for yesterday. So they're picking offline, online. Here's my e-commerce. Here's the stuff. Everything is one thing. If you're separating marketing and sales and merchandising and thinking they're separate, that's so yesterday. So 2019, 2017.